Welcome to the BS Machine. This is your host, Tommy Kendi. I will be your guide through these episodes in 2023. One of the cool things about the BS Machine is that you always get some sort of gold out of every episode. Whether I'm getting guests on, and they're not just any guests, they are guests that have a cool story. Or whether it's me talking and giving you all my wisdom and all the things I've learned in life. Either way, there's always one piece of gold you'll take away from these episodes. So please enjoy and welcome to the BS Machine. All right, welcome back, gang. This is your host, Tommy Kendi. Welcome to episode number 115 of the BS Machine. And what a cool episode I got coming up for you today. I've got a guest on, and as I said in the intro, he's not just any guest. This guy's got, fuck me, has he got a story. And it's really cool. I've got Mr. Trent Knox on the podcast. Trent, no one knows anything about you yet on my BS Machine podcast, but they fucking will now. Mate, welcome to the BS Machine, brother.
Thanks for having me, mate, and really appreciate it. And mate, who would have thought we only had a chat on our chat line last week, and now we get to share a bit of my stuff with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, I mean, the reason I want to get you on, well, everyone calls you Knoxy, so I'll call you Knoxy as well. But the reason I want to get you on is you've got such a cool ass story. And one of the things that Knoxy's done, if you live in Sydney, you definitely know about the 440 Club. And it's this bunch of legends that get together every Saturday mornings, isn't it?
Yep, every Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday mornings, and they go for a run, and they connect, and they get together, and they love each other. They laugh, and they go into jump in the water, jump in the ocean, and it's such a cool community that Knoxy's created, and lots of people know about it. And other than that, he's got such an epic story from where he's sort of come from. And just to add to that, he's also developed this thing on his Instagram called the Coffee Club, which happens at 4:30 every single morning, and we'll get into why he's doing that as well. But mate, so cool to knock with Knoxy, have a bit of chat to Knoxy. So mate, tell us what are you doing with yourself at the moment? I mean, let's get into the 440 Club first. I'm sure from there we'll tree off into the good stuff. So what's the 440 Club, and tell us how it was created?
So the 440 was created off the back of me going through a bit of a, breakdown, career change, a bit of a reality check, and it was early days of a breakdown. It was. I had an extended breakdown. I grew up, in a very athletic environment. I was lucky enough to go to a private school with my brother. Got into real estate post school, was still always training. I was known as always a hard trainer, and family were full of trainers and stuff, and a bit of a disco going on outside. And
that's all right.
So I was in real estate. I was also helping some mates out with the gym. So I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I was burnt out of real estate. I'd had enough. I just didn't have enough confidence, and I didn't understand what vulnerability was, and just being honest with myself to actually just take a leap of faith and leave. While I was real estate, I was helping mates with the gym. We started doing this running session down at Bondi Beach. It used to be a track session, which was 10 400s. So quite a hard sort of like pre-season or conditioning session, if you want to call it. It was done through a lot of sports, swimmers, footballers and what have you. And we decided to put the run on a hill, and there was a looped hill down at Bondi Beach. We measured it out. It just happened to be 440 metres, which was at the time irrelevant to today. We used to get down there every Saturday morning at 5 a.m. We'd sprint to the top, flat out. We'd race each other, walk back. And then progressively over a 3 to 6 month period, my running and mental fitness and all that sort of stuff went through the roof. We were all running really well, and after about sort of 3 to 6 months of that, the other boys dropped off, sort of wore themselves out. I just kept doing it. I was at the time in real estate, helping mates with the gym. I was still drinking. I was still using drugs at the time. So I tried to use it as a way to give me some accountability. You know, if I got up Saturday morning, maybe I would behave myself Friday night and maybe set my weekend up right. But it was me just doing these efforts on my own. And after a couple of weeks of doing it on my own, I just went, you know what, this sucks. Doing stuff on your own. And I'd always trained on my own, and I spent a lot of time in my life on my own trying to navigate my own shit that I didn't enjoy it. So I took the intensity out straight away and just started looping the run every week on my own. So instead of doing 10 sprints, I just do 10 loops. And after a couple of weeks, I thought this is okay.
So
but
10 times up and down.
Yeah, so you go up the hill, which is like a big C shape, and then you come to the outside, and it sort of loops into it's a total distance of 700 metres for the whole loop, but the intense part, which is the hill, is 440 metres. So after a couple of weeks, I thought, well, this sucks doing it on my own. And I think at the time I had pulled the pin on real estate, and I got out and I decided I was just going to become a trainer and just figure things out from there. But you know, what I didn't realise, I was pretty mentally broken at the time, and I just needed to escape real estate, and you know, I thought I'd figure it out along the way. So I put out an Instagram post together. I set up an account, caught the 440 because it was 440 metres. It was pretty simple, and I remember on the 16th of June 2016, I put out a post and I invited people. I think that was like a Thursday, and invited people to come down and run laps and you know, do 440 metre loops, hills with me. I turned up on the 18th of June, which was a Saturday, and then there's a famous post that went up on that day, and there's just an empty hill. There's no one there, and it was just me on my own. And you know, I would then, you know, invite people week after week, and you know, over about a year or two, we'd have people between 2, 10, 20, 12, 6. But in that 2-year period, there were several Saturdays that I just didn't turn up because I was either blacked out at home or I was still awake.
For the reason?
Drinking and drugs. And
yeah.
So, you know, and no one really called me out on it. I was, you know, just sort of fading in and out. And I think within that 2-year period, I broke my foot at one stage. I actually couldn't go down for a few months, and some other people were just turning up. Fast forward to 2018, 2017, I'd reconnected with a guy I'd met several years ago, a guy called Todd Lebinskas, who's now, you know, one of my best mates and business partner. And we had a lot of older friends that we used to train with, spend time with, and over a few months I harassed him to come down and have a run. He came from a rugby union, rugby league background, CrossFitter, big guy, you know, 105, 110 kilos, big unit. And then finally on the 13th of January 2018, he came down and he did what we call your day one. It's your first time you come down and join the run club. And there was about, I think from memory, 8 or 9 blokes and one poor girl called Diane. I still say poor Diane because having to deal with 8, 9 blokes, you know, on a Saturday morning. And she was a great runner.
Yeah.
He came with us that morning. He instantly became hooked. We started spending a lot of time with each other, and we had this beautiful relationship blossom. You know, and then over the next sort of couple of years, he and I started turning up more. We started putting more content out. He started inviting. He was from the inner west, more people from his area, which then encouraged me to start inviting more people from this area. A lot of people were very, very reluctant to come down. 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, no interest, 0 interest. And, you know, people used to tell me to get F off, I'm not effing coming. And I'd still be persistent and just say, look, just come and try it. And it was like, oh, we'll come if you do it at 6, we'll come if you do it at 7, we'll come if you do it on a Friday and a Saturday. And because I'm still quite stubborn, I was like, no, well, fuck off, I'm 5 a.m, that's it. Little did I know what I know now as to why the significance, and we'll talk about that today, at the 5 a.m. So all of a sudden in sort of 2019, it really started to build momentum. And to be brutally honest, like, it grew because of the women. And what I know now and what I really appreciate is women are I think they're far better leaders, firstly. Secondly, they are the more open-minded, and they just started coming down and seeing we're there every Saturday, rain, hail or shine. Toddy and I made a commitment to each other that we would be there, rain, hail or shine, whether it's just the two of us or 20 of us. It didn't matter. And it started to gain momentum. But even up until 2019, I was doing a few disappearing acts still. I left Toddy in the lurch a few Saturday mornings, and usually it would be a text message from me
simply
saying,
because of...
if he was getting a text message saying something like, drinking drugs, and if he was getting a message from me saying, mate, I'm not feeling well, I've had a rough night, or, I've eaten the wrong thing the night before, that meant I was either still wide awake and still, and using and drinking on my own, or I just wasn't responsive because I'd probably drunk to blackout. To his credit, he never, ever made me feel less than. He never gave me a hard time. He held space for me. And look, he knew what was going on. And he was just patient with me. During 2019, we were preparing to go to a running event in 2020 in the US. There was a lot of build up to that. I was looking back on it now in a really dark place. I could have some really good days and some really dark days, because what I know now and what I didn't know then, I still up until that point had no fucking clue who I was. I didn't know, if you said who's Knoxy, I had no idea. I didn't have any self-love. I didn't even know what love was back then. And what I was doing was putting everyone first and trying to fix other people's problems instead of just dealing with my own stuff and sitting with it. So I'd be busy doing this and doing that and just trying to fill in a hole that was just, just a lot of emptiness that didn't matter what I did, it wasn't going to fill anything up. And, while this was all happening,
so the run club... Just out of interest, sorry, Knoxy, just out of interest, in that time when you were in that really dark place and, obviously shit was going on, and you were looking for things to fill you up, was your... Like, even though you had these cool stuff, like you had the 440 started to happen, you had mates and all that, but was alcohol and drugs like the thing where you just felt, did it get you connected, or what was the deal with alcohol and drugs that made you feel?
No, numb me. There was no, at that time in my life, if I go back to when I was early real estate and started, I was making good money. I would say I had a better balance in life back then, because I wasn't staying out all night. I could go home. I could get up and function the next day, and I was training and I was turning up for things, and it just worked for whatever reason. But in saying that, using drugs and alcohol, back then, still allowed me to walk into any room or feel comfortable and still numb any anxiety, which I didn't realise I'd been suffering from anxiety for a long time. I always felt that I was always trying to impress someone, whether it was on the sporting field, in the gym, number of sales as a real estate agent, what kind of car I was driving, what I was wearing, who I was associated with. Always constantly trying to fit in like a fucking game of Tetris, trying to just slide into things. And so, it was pretty simple for me. Drugs and alcohol for me are just a numbing agent. That's it. Not to, it's an enhancer, and that's all it's ever been. And looking back at it now, it's all it ever was. And it makes sense why I used it, because when you can't sit with yourself and you have no idea who you are and where you fit in or where you belong, or you don't realise, but you don't like feeling that way. So it's really easy to pick up a drink, and you pick up a drink, and then all hell breaks loose, and you're capable of doing anything else. And the other thing too is why I didn't stop was because when I was in that numbing period, it lightened the load. And you don't want to come out of that, because you got to then remember what you did the night before, and then you got to face reality, and you got to look at how much money you spent and what you said and what you did, and you got to get through the next day without falling apart. So that's what it was. That's all it was. And when I wasn't comfortable with who I am, I drank more. I took more drugs, and when I was making more money, I was spending more of it. Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it's a crazy story. So what's, In terms of your own story, like what was there like a day, or was there like a wake up call? Because usually in these type of stories that you're saying, that there's always that moment where you're like, fucking hell, man, like this can't go on for much longer. Surely I've got to pull my shit together.
What I came to realise is that you can have many rock bottoms. My rock bottoms were just because I fucked up and because I thought I hurt someone or I upset someone or I, again, worrying about other people. So my early moments of like when I got out of real estate, I was letting people down. Then I was disappearing from mates and not turning up, like things like not turning up to people's weddings and not turning up to important things because I went out the night before and I just didn't care and I just didn't want to be around people. So you just like, it's the poor me syndrome. It's the poor me, so I'm just going to, just go and write myself off. So there were several moments along the way that goes, mate, you got to sort your shit out. I went into AA back in about 2012 through a good friend of mine, a guy called Jason Boone, who's a really successful real estate agent in Sydney. But I didn't want to get sober. I knew that's where I needed to be, but I wanted to find a way to be able to drink and socialise and do what everyone else was doing without doing the work. Little did I know that childhood trauma and lack of identity were always going to be the things that were going to prevent me from either A, being able to drink successfully, which sounds stupid just by saying it, or making a decision that alcohol and drugs don't serve me and that I need to live a life without it. So I hadn't made a decision to stop drinking. I hadn't made a decision that there was I hadn't accepted there was a real problem back in 2012. So I tried for a year or two, just in and out, get a few months up. But I had no intention of getting sober, and then I think if you fast forward, I was back out there for a long time, just, being reckless. But, if you fast forward then to, if you want to talk about the moment it really changed things for me, 2020, I'd come off an up and down year in 2019, and the run club was growing. My relationship with Toddy was growing, and just to show you, like, just to make a point, for me at that stage, the run club was just a distraction. I thought it would keep me sober. I thought it would help me. But it wasn't until 2020 that I realised that I was the only one in the community not sharing my story and not being vulnerable, not opening up and being, and using the platform for the reason I created it, to help people be vulnerable, help people turn up in their darkness and help people find the light. There's me running the show, and if you look back, I was nothing but a fraud. So 2020 was, looking back now, was a good year because we went into COVID. I had a lot of trips planned with the run club. We had all this exciting stuff. Everything just got shut down. And I remember I had a drink in about February of 2020, which ended up in a disaster. I had another drink in about April, another disaster. Another one in May.
Disaster as in
just disappeared. Yeah, disappeared for 2 days. I just spent, a lot of money on cocaine and did it on my own. And just. Can
I just ask, Knoxy, can I just ask, when you go out on like a big night, what would that, like, how much money would you spend? Like a big night out for Knoxy.
But this is the thing. At this stage, I wasn't going out. I was sitting at home alone and doing it, because
right.
I'd lost a connection with a lot of people outside. I didn't want to be out and about. And quite often, and I'm happy to share this, like I could be sitting home after having a really good week of training and work and stuff and sitting at home alone on a Saturday night. No one to hang out with, everyone's in, relationships. I wasn't dating, and I could be tucked up on the couch, pizza, chocolate, and then just an idea came up in the head, and the next moment I'm calling a dealer and getting alcohol and just sitting at home, and then before I know it, it's the next morning and I'm still ordering more. And it's just me, And
Crazy.
then, of course, when you're in that space, you don't want to leave because you've got to face reality. And, it is nothing but utter chaos. And that's where it got to, where, the breaking point for me was I could feel it was coming to an end. And the end for me was like, this could be disastrous for me. You know, I'd considered what it would be like to take my life. I don't think I ever came close, but there was consideration in different days. I was resenting the run club at times. I was resenting Toddy. I was resenting anyone that was doing better than me. We have a mutual friend in Tom Gibson. I resented him. Anyone that I felt was happier than me or healthier than me, I resented, and it's like, what's the point? It got to June of 2020, and that was my last one. And it was around the 20th it started, and I think it finished up on the 21st or whatever it was. And Todd found me, on the 22nd, and I caught up with him, and I was pretty broken. It was another episode on my own, and we were sitting in a cafe, and he's just like, "Mate, I am now worried." And when you got your best mate looking in the face, going, "Mate, I'm worried." You go from being this real happy guy, and you're this amazing leader in the community, and you're happy, and you train, you help all these people, you'll do anything for anyone, and then there's this darkness, and you disappear. He said, "I'm really scared I'm going to get a phone call." Now, in that conversation, I knew I was done. I was just like, "Fuck this, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore." And then it was a very simple question he asked me. He said, "Mate, what can I do? What can I do to help?" And then, for me, that was a moment where a light just came on, and I just looked at him, and I still tell this story. I laughed at him. I wasn't laughing at him, I was laughing at the moment. He's like, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Mate, there is absolutely nothing you can do for me." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Mate, you love me, you're there for me. You can't do any more than that." And he's like, "I don't follow." I said, "Mate, this is entirely up to me now. I'm the one who's got to do this work. I'm the one who decides whether I walk in to the right door from here." And I said, "Right," and I stood up at the table. I said, "I've got to go." And he's like, "Where are you going?" And it was 11:45, and it was a Tuesday. I said, "I've got to go to AA," and there was a 12 o'clock meeting. And I knew it would take me 10 minutes to get there. And that was the 22nd of June in 2020. And I've remained sober since that day. And I walked in that room, and for the first time I actually heard people sharing. I actually really heard them, and they're the stories I'd heard many times before, and I actually understood it, and I actually got it. And I didn't want to go through life the way I was going through it. I knew I had to find a way to connect to myself. I knew I had to find a way through this. And at that time, I'd already been meditating for many years. I had a fucking community that I'd built that I hadn't tapped into. I had a best mate there that I wasn't leaning on and asking for help. So everything was always around me. I just had this glaze over me and just didn't see it. And I didn't back myself enough, and there was unworthiness and shame and guilt and all the stuff that you carry with you. And then, the second defining moment for me was about a week later. I'd been to a meeting every day. I was back with my psychologist. I was meditating. I was exercising, doing all the suggested things. And I remember sitting down one morning on my own, and I just had this realisation, and it was quite profound. There were two options that were presented with me at that moment, and the first option was, and I start by saying that I've always believed that the 440 is a very special thing. It's a special energy source, and it's something that I knew was going to help a lot of people, and it does. And I know it's going to do, and it is doing. It will do something quite spectacular. And I said to myself, look, the 440 will do whatever it's meant to do, and it will be amazing. And for that to happen, you have to stay sober. You can't ever pick up a drink again. So that was option A. Option B was that I could have a bit of a break, do some suggested steps, maybe cut some corners, and maybe, I'd pick up a drink down the track if I felt like it. And then the result of that, that the 440 would eventually cease to exist. And I had this fear of, it would be one of those things that people say, hey, whatever happened to the guy, whatever happened to that run club. So there was A and B, and there was no middle ground. There was no, like, let's just trial it. It was like, don't drink, and that thing will do whatever it's meant to do. Pick up again, and it won't exist. And I just went, I'm curious to see where this thing goes. I'm curious to see how far I can take it, and that's all I did. And I just kept it really simple. And I thought, if I want to keep the 440, and if that's the trade-off, never drink again. And then what comes with that is work. I wanted to find out who I was, and I'd started going through that process through my psychologist. I started going through that process through meditation, and the thing that actually showed me who I was what we'll talk about is the coffee club. Getting up in front of a camera every morning, half asleep with a coffee, without a script and just talking. That's a good way.
4:30 a.m.
4:30 a.m. That is, if you want to find out who you are and what makes you tick, do the same thing every day sober, and without a script, and it will work. And when people say, "Who are you?" I just say, just tune in on this. That's me. No, there's no fluff. I'm not trying to be anyone. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm getting up because I'm getting up in my darkness. I'm getting up because it's good for me. I'm getting up because I'm doing something I've always loved doing, is helping people. I've always loved, connecting to people. But what I never did was I never put myself first. I never, and putting myself first now is like, I will get to you when I've done what I need to do. I can't make this afternoon because I'm exhausted. I need to go and sleep. It's saying no to things, but it's delivering it. It's not just saying no. Like I'm never going to go out in public again. I'm never going to turn up to an event again because I've got a problem with alcohol. It's actually just picking and choosing your moments, and it's having a list of daily non-negotiables. It's when I'm not connected to me, then everything else is just dog shit. I have to make sure that connection is active every day. So
Knoxy, on that connection to yourself and the importance of that, and I totally agree with you. I believe in the number one thing. If you're not connected to yourself, how are you meant to connect to other people?
Yep.
And so when you are connected to yourself, I mean, what tools do you use? Because, I mean, look, even with me, I have all these tools like meditation, yoga, all this type of shit, right? Well, not shit, but it's all these epic tools that we have at our fingertips. We've got breath work, we've got run, whatever it is. But you can still have those tools, do them, but still be disconnected from yourself if you're not being fucking true to what's going on. So even though you have these tools, what's the main thing that you when and how do you get to that point of total connection to yourself and being real?
Well, you got to be able to sit still. We fill our lives with all the stuff of like ping-ponging around, and we do everything we possibly can to avoid sitting still. And here's an example. Like before we come on today, my head was bouncing around because I've been up all morning. I had a rough sleep because of the humidity. I've been doing things this morning knowing that I had to get home to get on this. I was sharing with you I couldn't get a park. By the time I found a park and walked home, I was sweating. I was ready to just knock someone out for no reason. But because I meditate, I own it. And I go, mate, you need to message Tommy right now and say, mate, I'm having a cold shower. I'm going to meditate. Can I tell you the difference between what I am saying right now and the mood I am in compared to what I was? Now, I wasn't angry at anyone, but there was just this pent up because of the heat, because of everything that's been happening since last night. I hosted 200 people this morning. It's like herding cats, and you have to accept that nothing ever goes to plan. And so all I had to do was a cold shower for 2 minutes. I meditated for 20 minutes. I'm a Vedic meditator. The connection's live again. Now you're getting connected, Knoxy, not ping pong Knoxy. And it's the daily practice of this stuff. You've got to work at this stuff every day. It's compounding stress in your body when you don't do it. You know, and as an alcoholic and an addict, it's daily work. So for me, I've got to be meditating every day. I do a bit of breath work if I need to. I've got to get up in the dark before the sunrise. I've got to get in the ocean. I've got to move. Now, that sounds like a long list. It's not, because it's part of my life now. It's my blueprint. And one just rolls in for the other. And the beautiful thing with the connection point, when you're connected to yourself, you own everything. So, like, outside, it's chaos. But it's chaos whether I'm indoors or I'm out there, and I can't blame them. I can't blame the sun because it's hot. I can't blame the people because they want to park at the beach as well. It's just, it's what happened. And it's just like, and then it's like, okay, your temper's starting to flare. And trust me, when I say my temper flaring, no one sees it. I can feel it building up. And that is having a higher level of consciousness. And I go, mate, just message Tommy. Now, a few years ago, I wouldn't have messaged Tommy. You know, I probably would have messaged you and say, man, I'm not doing this today.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the difference. That's the difference.
You're just being super aware of Knoxy comes number one, and making sure Knoxy's cool. And I fucking love that, man. And that's the thing. You messaged me. I was like, yeah, cool. No worries. Let's do half hour later. I don't give a shit. I'm just sitting around, you know. There's zero issue. I don't even think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, no worries, man. Easy. Yeah, it's just being honest with yourself, and then the rest of the sort of world matches how you are. It's just the way it is.
And I think, mate, getting back to what you're asking about, that connection is, it's the connection is just understanding what's going on. Your connection to yourself is really understanding what's going on around you. Okay, so someone looks at you funny or someone's short with you. When you're connected to yourself and you're comfortable with yourself and you're okay with yourself, that the way they deal with you and treat you, it just doesn't penetrate. And then what I do is I just look at them and go, right, I pause, I just analyse what's going on, and I can, look around and I don't react. And 99% of the time when people behave in a way, towards me that might affect me, 99% of the time it's got nothing to do with me. And when I have that connection, it means I can hold space for people. I can respond the right way, and sometimes the response is not responding. And I can just be okay with what's going on around me, because, and you'll relate to this. When I'm connected, I can be anywhere. I can be in the middle of a battlefield. I can be I don't need to go and jump on a plane to go and find peace and serenity. You can be in a nightmare of you can be in, Bondi on a busy day and still find peace under a tree. You can find peace floating out the back of the ocean. You can find peace in a cafe. But we look for chaos. When we're in a chaotic headspace, we attract chaos. When you are connected and you're calm, you're okay with just being with you.
Man, it's so special. I love it. And you know what? It's funny, even before when you were just talking, you're like, oh, I hosted 200 people today. It's like, holy shit, dude. That is unbelievable what you've created with the 440 Club. And I actually got that photo. You sent me a photo of, I don't know if that was this morning or last week or whatever, but
I think
literally, if you go into if you go into the 440 Club Instagram, you literally see what an impact you're making, and the amount of people that are rocking up at this thing every single Saturday. And it's such a cool thing you've created out of thin air. So and you went with it, and I also love that when you started it, you were a total dysfunctional fuck up, and it's actually the 440 that brought you through to now you being super connected. And you're in with yourself, and every day, all of us are growing constantly. And it's like you've made this ally with the 440 Club, and you're allowing the 440 Club to do what it does, and new things keep coming out of it. And when you messaged me the other day to come on the coffee club, even I was like, mate, 4:30, you're fucking kidding me. I'm not getting up to get on the coffee club for that. But it was awesome. I got up at 4:30. I had a chat to you for half hour, and then I got so much done. It was like 7 a.m. and I felt like it was midday. I was on, you know, it was like rocking it. It was one of the best days, most productive days I've had. So this whole thing of waking up when it's still dark, and that's part of the whole message is wake up into darkness and move into the light. You know, what's the thing? It's
so mate, I did I reverse engineered the whole thing. You know, it was just doing it, you know, obviously years ago, and then even before I got sober, Toddy and I used to go, why is this thing working? I'm trying to pull it all apart because we wanted, you know, we've been turning part of it into a business, and you know, the more I've stayed sober, the more opportunities seem to come up. But so firstly, Saturday morning, no one wants to get out of bed, even if you haven't played up. You've had a big week. It's the entitlement of I need to sleep in. But if you have played up and, you know, you could be out celebrating and commiserating, you know, you're not getting up either. So we've, you know, unusually selected a morning that no one is around. So if you're someone who's overweight, insecure, low self-esteem, and you want to learn to run and learn to move, and you're heavily overweight, or just you've had breast cancer, you've lost a loved one, you've lost your business, you've gone through a divorce, whatever. There's no one around. The beauty and the solitude of a Saturday morning, I've never experienced it on any other day. Sunday morning, if you're out and about early, is busier. Monday to Friday is busier. Saturday, it's just dead. But it's a peaceful dead. And so, you know, the "we start in the dark" slogan that we use, I started the Run Club when I was in a dark place. We all experience darkness, is what I've come to realise. You know, we're born in the dark. You know, starting a new school, there's darkness. You know, new relationship, it's darkness. And darkness is fear, it's the unknown, it's the vulnerability side of things. And the beautiful thing with darkness is what I come to realise is it's not permanent. So the thing that, even though we started as a run club, we're more than that now. And you know, we start in the dark. Every day is a new day. We start in the dark. What I found with my experience is, and I share my experience of strength and hope with the community, is that when I start my day in the dark, I get off on the right foot. When I start the day in the dark, I increase my chances of seeing a beautiful sunrise every day. When I start my day in the dark, I have an opportunity to let go of the bullshit from the day before if I haven't dealt with it. You know, I can have some time to myself before the chaos of the world wakes up. And we've been able to apply that, you know, to all of our members and their lives of, like, you know, and majority of them, our members that come, are overcoming some darkness. You know, I can't run, I can't do this, I can't do that. Cool. Can you walk? Yes. Can you get out of bed? Yes. And when they start realising that the minimum of even turning up and walking 10 metres is okay, or turning up and walking a lap's okay, or even just getting up for a sunrise and walking down the stairs, seeing the sun and going back to bed, that is all bankable currency. You know, and one of our other beautiful things we say is get up, lace up and turn up. And these are things that just manifested for me when I used to do all the stories and post them out, and get up, lace up, turn up, we start in the dark. And I started throwing these words out on our stories, and people started like repeating them back to us. And I'm like, that people are actually getting this stuff. This is what I grew up. And there's another statement which I stole from an old training mentor called George Dorju, "This is good for me." You know, and we'd have 30 blokes, and I'm talking blokey blokes, in the City Tats Club, and they'll be ex-footballers, all ex-gangsters and crooks, and just a mixed bag of funny blokes. And I was about 19 or 20 at the time, and I was probably going through one of my fit periods. And George was about 80. He was an old prisoner of war, and he trained, you know, every sort of celebrity and Olympians and stuff over the years, and footballers. And essentially, we used to have had 30 blokes struggling. We were all screaming and in pain, and the next moment you hear this chant, "This is good for me. This is good for me." And we just started breaking out and laughed. And I was 19 and through to like 80-year-olds. And it was good for me. And there'd be George like punching in the stomach with a medicine ball going, this is good for me. And I'll never forget that. And I'm like, this is good for me. And that's stuck with me. And I started putting it out. And that's when, people started relating to the dialogue, because we started, we get wired by dialogue. And then fast forward to now, it's every Saturday. Rain, hail or shine. It's 52 weeks a year. It's the same time. It's the same menu. And it's like church. Church is open. It's Sunday morning, whatever it is. You walk in, you stick your bum on a seat. You're sitting still. That's the whole purpose of it. You go and sit still and you listen to something up in front. And there's a message, there's a story. They're the same stories from one same book. You're connecting with people. So it doesn't matter if it's organised religion or it's a run club. That doesn't change the menu. You'll have a different experience every week, and that's the most important thing for us, to build something that was sustainable. And then selfishly, and we'll talk about the coffee club in a second. I use the coffee club to stay sober. I need to be up at 3:30 6 mornings a week to buy a coffee at 4 o'clock to be live at 4:30. That keeps me sober.
That's so good.
And I use that. And don't get me wrong. I don't fantasize about having a drink or drug anymore. But I used it for a period of time when I went through some vulnerable periods that I had to, and it scares the shit out of me that I would ever miss that coffee club for any reason, because I love it, because I bag my mates on it. I insult my friends, and I tell stories of stuff that doesn't even make sense. I talk about some of my sobriety, but more importantly, I give people permission to stop being hard on themselves, and that any effort or action that they take of getting to bed early or trying to do something good for them, that should be rewarded. And that went from me from years and years and years of not taking the time to go, mate, well done. I still struggle with it today. I still have girlfriends and boyfriends of mine that kick me in the backside and go, mate, have you stopped to look at what you've done? And I'm like, no, fuck off. But I have to. I have to sit there and look at the image going, shit, this is real. It's and I'm part of it. Because if I don't, then I'm not going to appreciate it.
Unbelievable, man. And yeah, obviously the coffee club is part of the 440 Instagram. You go live every morning, 6 mornings a week, 4:30 a.m.
Sunday I just pop up whatever time I feel like it, and that's the inner child doing what I want, not being told what to do. And but what I didn't realise with that is you can put notifications on you and say, I think I'm playing games with them popping up when I feel like it. They're actually getting a notification. So, and Sunday just gives me a bit of breath. Look, it's not a lot of breathing space. I'm still out the door at 5 o'clock having coffee with mates. But it just allows me a bit of freedom, and it doesn't have to be 4:30.
Mate, what a story. So, do you know what, Knoxy? What's if you're like a woman or a man at the moment, and you're sitting at home and you're sort of in that dark place, your life's a bit of a fuck up at the moment. There's shit going everywhere. There's chaos. You don't know what to do. Blah 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 blah. You're feeling anxious about the future. What's sort of 3 things that for them to just absolutely fucking get onto right this second?
Well, if I'm blunt, the first thing you got to accept that you're the fucking problem. That's the first thing, that you are the center of your chaos. Okay, whatever's happening to you right now is because of you. And I just want to elaborate on that, is that a lot of my trauma was from childhood trauma, and I experienced things that I had a rough childhood, and and as did a lot of people. That affects people. What goes on in your early part of your childhood, you carry through for a long period of time. If it's untreated and it's undiagnosed and you don't do anything about it, life will be hard. And like I said before, getting here today, all the shit flying around outside, that's flying around anyway on any given day. So just know that it all starts and ends with you. That's the first thing. Secondly, you've got to be brutally honest with what's going on. For me, I had to be brutally honest that alcohol and drugs were going to destroy my life. I had to be brutally honest that for me to have a good life, I had to get rid of them. Not just trial it, get rid of them. And that has worked for me, and it's working really well. Thirdly, ask for help. Ask for help. Lean in on your friends. That is, you got to do it. And if you're a bloke out there, we are fucking useless with doing that. We're the worst. That was my problem, not asking for help. So you got to take ownership. That it's on you. You've got to. What was the second thing I said? You got to be brutally honest with the whole thing.
Brutally honest.
You got to be brutally honest about everything. You got to be really honest about it all. If you're not honest with it all, you will not progress. And thirdly, you got to ask for help. You know, and the people that really care and want to see you succeed, they'll be there for you. They will drop everything for you if you're brutally honest. If you take all of it, take responsibility, be honest, they'll do whatever it takes, and they'll make sure that you get all the help you need.
Mate, so good. Knoxy, dude, I just want to acknowledge you, man, for one, the epic stuff you've already created, and it just sounds like you haven't even got started. No, and the other thing I want to acknowledge you for is that even just chatting to you, you know, like for someone, you know, like me, I feel like I've done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of work in my life. Like I've been in the deep depths. I've been at the highs and lows. But even just chatting to you, man, you're naturally just an inspiration, you know, and it feels so nice to chat to the true Knoxy, you know what I mean? And it's, I just want to acknowledge you for how you front up, man, because it's fucking unbelievable.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, look, it's interesting, and this is part of my growth. I when I started getting into this space, I would still point fingers at other people. And when I'm doing that, then there's an issue going, there's something going on with me. And I keep that awareness by, again, having that connection through meditation, getting in the ocean. But when I'm around people that are doing some work and then they're still blaming everyone around them, I'm like, you sound like me, and you haven't even begun the real work. You know, the real work is that when there's not a day that doesn't go by that you are not doing. So for me, and I'll share this, like, you know, I think that, you know, the AA program in Australia is heavily, it's not valued enough, and it's heavily, what's the word I'm looking for? Undervalued.
Undervalued or
is that I still go to 5 or 6 meetings a week, right? And a lot of friends say, but hang on, you're 2.5 years sober, haven't you done enough? I said, well, no, because the purpose of a meeting is you're around other people that are in sobriety, and some have got 60 days, some have got, 30 years. Some have been in the program for 30 years and have done 5 years on, 5 years off, 5 years on. The common denominator with most of the people that come out of sobriety is they stop going to meetings, and they stop and they don't listen to the stories of what it was like when they came in. There was a young guy that I sat with yesterday who I sort of got him in a headlock yesterday in a polite way. He's a lovely young guy, and he's got about 60 days up, and he's been to the run club, funny enough. And he was rattled and battling yesterday. So me listening to his story reminded me what it was like in my first 60 days. It sucked. I was so broken and so vulnerable and just sensitive and just sad. And I looked and I gave him a bit of a headlock. I said, mate, you know what you need to do? And he goes, yeah, I know. He turned up this morning. He hardly slept because he was just having a rough night because of the heat. And he goes, I'm so glad. And the smile on his face this morning. Now, all he did was get up. He got up, laced up, turned up. He ran, he dipped, he sipped. Cost him nothing, and it is just, it's just profound. Like, and I go to those, like I'm going to go to a meeting today. And the reason I go today is because I let go of the bullshit of like, I don't need this, I'm not like you, and I hear the same stories from the same people. keeps me sober, and it works. It's no different from me going to the run club and hearing stories from people's weeks that were worse than mine. It kicks me in the arse when I'm whinging and complaining about someone that cut me off in the street, and they talk about, they've had a son that diagnosed with something and they don't know it's terminal. Then you go, right, we're all in this together, and that's why I still go. It works. It is an undervalued program, but it's not the only thing that I do. I have multiple tools in my belt that help me stay in this space.
Yeah, mate. So good to have you on, Knoxy. It's been what a fucking conversation. So, guys, if you want to hit up Knoxy or get in with the 440 Club, just get them on Instagram. That's the best place, isn't it, Knoxy? It's
I've got my personal account, and people message. It's Trent Knox, TRENTKNOX. We're at Trent Knox, and then the other one's at THE_440. But I'm happy for you to DM me personally, and I'll only share what I've been doing and what works for me. I don't run off other people's stories. That's what's got me this far, and if I can share that and help someone, then I'm happy to do it.
Mate, you can't go through life with the story you've got and what you've created and not change lives. So you're already doing that, brother. And
Thank you.
mate, it's so cool to have you on the show. And man. So hit up Knoxy or the 440 Club, and you'll see everything Knoxy's doing over there. But otherwise, mate, honoured to have you on, and
Thanks,
fucking kick ass, bruh.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, thanks again, mate. I really appreciate it.